Okay, so we're here to look at how to take these really cute strips of border tiles and attach them onto the main blanket. So what this is going to look like is we're going to have the two shorter strips that are 6 rectangles long. Those are going to be for your top and bottom. And we've got those longer strips that are going to be our sides. So we're going to actually attach the bottom and the top first, and then the longer ones are just going to go along this whole edge, and it makes it a lot more seamless. So what I've done for a reference point is I've already attached my top here, and then I'm going to show you how to do the same with the bottom, but this allows you to kind of see our goal. So I'm going to scooch down to my bottom. So here's my bottom. Now what I've done, this one is not attached yet. Now what you can see is I've taken, these are little stitch markers that I just got a whole kit from Amazon. You can also use paper clips of different sizes. These are just used to close and latch and either hold things together like I'm using it for. You can alternatively use it to mark a spot in a project where you're going to maybe put some eyes or a smile if you're making like a toy. So I started with the edges, like the two ends here, and then I just marked a stitch marker to hold these in place. This is an important part because as you attach these two edges, what we might find is that one edge has more stitches than the other, and it might not be perfectly lined up. So this just allows us to adjust and compensate as we need to. And we'll typically need to compensate more at the end, and I'll talk about that when we actually put them together. Okay, so I've got it attached the way I want it. This is the bottom, so my dragonflies are looking upwards. If you want it to face downwards, feel free to adjust and face it the other way. So I flipped it upside down because you have to work right to left. I like having these on top, but you can also attach it this way. It really depends on your preference. I just like having the large part of the work on the bottom for me. Okay, so to attach it, we're actually going to do the same thing that we did to attach the border tiles together. We're going to be attaching using single crochets to attach them together. And you can see we've got some tails. We're going to try and work over these tails. I'm just trying to move them out of the way a little bit. So I'm on the right end here, because remember you have to go right to left when we're doing our crochet together stitch. So I'm going to go into that corner stitch right there. Go a little. Okay, I'm going to take my yarn, pull it through. There we go. I'm just going to do a little knot. I always like knots because they feel sturdier. If you want to attach it without a knot, you can attach it other ways if you know other methods. I'm going to put my hook through, grab the yarn, pull it through, grab the yarn, pull through to loop myself on. And then in that first same stitch that I've been working on, I'm going to do a single crochet. So I'm going to grab the yarn, pull it through, 2 on my hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. Remember, if you ever need a refresher on a stitch like single crochet, there's lots of YouTube videos that you can go and reference that are really useful. And then I'm going to go into that matching stitch, go downwards. And then remember, same thing as before, we're going to put that loop on our hook. We're going to tighten that. And then we're going to just kind of slide it through. Sometimes it's a little picky. Okay, and so what that does is we're taking our single crochet from the bottom and attaching it to the top. Okay, and then as I work, I'm going to try and work over this tail. So into the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull it through, 2 on my hook, yarn over and pull through 2 for our single crochet. Going to go into that next stitch, and same thing, I'm just going to attach that loop, tighten it down, and turn it in. So we're continuing to attach by single crocheting. There's lots of other ways that you can crochet edges together. If you do a quick Google search, you can find lots of different methods. I prefer this because I think it looks the most seamless from other things that I've tried. It doesn't create a ridge in the middle. It doesn't have like any gaps or anything like that. So I think this is the nicest looking one in my preference. Okay, so you're just gonna keep doing that same step of single crocheting. I'll do one more just to wrap up the idea. You're gonna continue single crocheting in the next stitch, pull up a loop, go into the top of the matching stitch, attach your loop, tighten your loop, gonna turn through that top loop. So you're gonna keep doing that same step all the way along. Go ahead and do it until you get to here. So go ahead and pause the video, and I will show you how to do this, and then we'll talk through like finishing off and how you can adjust and compensate if you're finding that the lengths are not matching up perfectly. So I'm just about approaching that first join here, where we're gonna have to, talk through how to attach it with that seam there. Now I'm gonna pull the stitch marker off so you can see it. What you'll notice is that compared to the other one, it's a little tight here. You can see that there's a little bit, oh gosh, I moved, sorry. When I flatten it out, what you can see is that this piece here is a little bit bulky. There's like more stitches on my top than my bottom here, which is totally normal. These will stretch a bit, and these are different stitches, so you might have more give in one than the other. So I just finished doing a single crochet and attaching to the top. I'm going to show you guys a compensation method that I really like if I'm finding that the top has more stitches than the bottom. So after I've just finished that pull through, what I'm going to do is, instead of starting my next single crochet, I'm actually going to go into that next loop on the top, and I'm going to grab this yarn and I'm just going to loop it through that one as well. What that does is it's skipping ahead to the next stitch on the top, so we're kind of putting two top stitches together in essence. And I'm going to single crochet in my next one, leave that loop, and then let's see how this one's looking. We're going to do the same thing as normal, go into that top stitch, attach the loop, tighten the loop, and slide it through carefully. So at this point, we're still a little bit longer on the top and the bottom, so I'm going to do that one more time. If you're noticing that it's going to be a little bit longer ahead of time, you can kind of space them out if you don't want them to be all next to each other. I find that this is not super obvious, like you can't see this as much. So I'm going to attach to a second one just to kind of decrease that, and that's looking a lot better. The top is looking closer to the bottom in length now. Okay, and then I'm going to do my next single crochet. And then I want to show you guys what to do once you get to that seam where those two tiles are meeting, just because it's a little different than as you go along beforehand. So I'm just going to get to that spot, continue with my single crochet, going into the top, attaching my loop, tightening and pulling through. So we're just about there. We have a stitch or two more, and then you can see how to adjust. So we're really right at that crux here. I'll zoom in so you can see. Attach that loop. So we are right at that crux where we have that join. So what you're actually going to do, and these guys are kind of in the way, so I might tuck them in rather than work over them right now. I can sew those in later. So what you're actually going to do is, for your next single crochet, you're just going to go in like normal. Okay. And then I'm just going to go for the stitch that's kind of right next. It's kind of that last stitch where I have that thread coming off of. I'm going to attach onto there. And then you've kind of got two options here. You could just keep going and you could do your next single crochet and then attach onto this other corner across the way stitch. Or if you prefer, something that I have started liking to do instead is top stitch and kind of pull this guy along. So just like we did to compensate, where we kind of skipped ahead to the next top without doing the full stitch. I'm going to tighten and just pull through. And I find that it connects them pretty nicely together. And then I'm going to do single crochet like normal. Okay, and go into that next stitch. Grab the yarn, tighten it, and pull through. Looks like there might be a tail that needs to be pulled taut there. So once again, what I just did there, if you want to see that one more time, I can undo it. So this was where we were. We had just, there we go. We had just done our stitch into that right-hand corner. And I said you had two options. You could either go into the next stitch on the bottom and attach it to the left corner. You might have like a little bit of space from that. Doesn't really affect it too much. Or what you can do is pull up your loop, slide your hook into that left corner, attach the yarn, tighten it up, and pull through. This is that same method that we were just doing, where remember our top was a little bit longer and we wanted to kind of skip ahead to the next stitch to shorten that distance. And so it kind of puts that little gap together really nicely, I found. So you can experiment, you can try that, or you can just do your next single crochet and attach that single crochet to the left-hand corner. Okay, so I'm going to do that next stitch just to get a little bit past that seam. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to keep doing that, where you're going to do single crochets, pull up your loop, and attach it to the stitch right above it. And you're going to keep working. The stitch markers will help you stay at the right spacing, right? You can also like pull and stretch it to see your stitches a little bit better that way. I find that stretching it helps me see that I'm actually okay, even if it bunches up a little bit. And then feel free, if you do need to compensate, you can do that compensation that we did where we just took the top loop and pulled it through the very next one. That's a really good compensation method. One last compensation method before you continue on until the end. A second one is, instead of doing your regular go into the next one and single crochet, right? You can do what's called single crocheting two together, where after you pull up your loop, you can go into the next stitch, pull up a loop two, and have 3 on your hook. And then you can single crochet through all 3 of those loops. And what that does is it attaches the 2 bottom stitches together. So that's a good strategy if you are seeming to have more stitches on your bottom than your top. So vice versa, you have 2 methods depending on which one needs to be compressed. So single crocheting 2 together is to compress the bottom, and then looping over to the next stitch that we did earlier, that's a good compression method for the top if that's seeming too long. So feel free to use those strategies. If you're finding that you're a little bit off, make sure you stretch to see that you actually might be just right. It's a little harder to see when it's bunched up. And then you're just going to keep working along, taking out the stitch markers as you go, and I'll touch base with you as I'm approaching the end just to talk through any last adjustments that you might need.